Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today's story is about a needle that changed the destiny of the world, the compass. Long before satellites and GPS, when sailors feared the endless oceans, this small instrument gave them courage. It pointed not just north, but toward discovery itself. Born in ancient China, refined by Arab scholars, and carried by European explorers, the compass became humanity's silent guide, the reason we dared to cross the unknown.
There are moments in human history when a single invention does more than solve a problem. It changes the very direction of civilization. The compass was one such invention, a modest needle that pointed the way not just to the north, but to the unknown itself. It was the quiet tool that whispered to sailors, "Trust me, the world is bigger than your fears." To understand the compass is to journey through centuries of curiosity, discovery, and courage. It is not merely the tale of a magnetized piece of iron, but of restless minds. Chinese scholars, Arab navigators, Venetian merchants, and European explorers, all guided by the same invisible force of Earth's magnetic pull. And behind that force stood humanity's greatest urge, to know what lies beyond the horizon. The story begins in ancient China, some 2,000 years ago, during the Han Dynasty. It was an age when scholars spent their lives studying the heavens and the earth, seeking order in the cosmos. Among their many wonders, they discovered a peculiar mineral, lodestone, a naturally magnetized rock that mysteriously attracted bits of iron. It was a curiosity at first, a magic trick of the natural world. The early Chinese called it Ci Shi, the loving stone, because of its uncanny attraction. Somewhere around the 2nd century BCE, a Chinese philosopher noticed something strange. When suspended freely, a piece of lodestone consistently pointed in one direction. The scholars didn't yet think of navigation. They saw it as a divine property, a bridge between heaven and earth. The earliest compasses weren't even used for travel. They were used for feng shui, the art of harmonizing human life with the flow of nature. Masters would place lodestone spoons on smooth bronze plates, letting the handle point south, symbolic of warmth, life, and cosmic balance. For centuries, this mystical tool remained confined to temples and scholars' rooms. But in time, the Chinese mariners, bold men who sailed the treacherous rivers and coasts, began to realize that this little needle could guide them safely even when the sun and stars were hidden. By the 11th century, Chinese navigators were using the south-pointing needle at sea. The Book of the Devil Valley Master and later writings in the Dream Pool essays by Shan Kuo described how sailors would float a magnetized needle on a piece of wood in water to find their direction. It was an era when ships ventured farther into the unknown, through fog, storms, and open seas, armed with nothing more than courage and a floating needle. The compass soon began its westward journey, carried by the unstoppable tide of trade and cultural exchange. The Silk Road, that great artery of civilization, connected the Chinese East to the Islamic world and Europe. Along with silk and spices, another treasure traveled quietly, the secret of the compass. By the 12th century, Arab traders and scholars had adopted it eagerly. The Islamic Golden Age was flourishing. Baghdad and Cairo were centers of astronomy and science. Muslim navigators called the device al-Qibla, not just for sea voyages, but also to determine the direction of Mecca for prayers. These were people who saw no boundary between faith and science. To understand the stars was to understand God's creation. Arab seafarers improved upon the Chinese design. They began using dry compasses, enclosing the needle inside a protective box to prevent disturbance from the wind or waves. They inscribed degrees around it and added markings for the cardinal directions. With their refined knowledge of geography and mathematics, they could now sail vast distances across the Indian Ocean, linking Africa, India, and Southeast Asia in a vast network of trade. The compass became their silent companion through sandstorms and monsoons alike. And as Arab merchants sailed to Mediterranean ports, they brought this strange instrument to Europe. A world still afraid of venturing too far beyond the known shores. Europe in the 13th century was awakening from its long medieval slumber. The Crusades had opened channels between East and West, and curiosity was beginning to replace fear. But the seas were still a dangerous mystery. Sailors relied on the stars and the coastline. Once clouds covered the sky, they were blind. Then came the compass, and with it, courage. The earliest European references appear in the writings of Alexander Neckham, an English scholar, who described how sailors used a magnetized needle to find their way when the stars were hidden. Soon, compasses became essential on every ship. Mariners crafted elegant wooden boxes with delicate needles, often accompanied by elaborate maps drawn on parchment. But while the Chinese saw the compass as a harmony of nature, and the Arabs as a bridge between science and faith, Europeans saw it as a weapon against ignorance. It was the spark that would ignite the age of exploration. The 15th and 16th centuries became an age of legends. The names still echo through time: Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, John Cabot. They carried with them dreams of wealth, empire, and immortality, and the small compass that made it possible. When Columbus sailed westward across the Atlantic in 1492, he noticed something strange. The compass needle did not point exactly to the North Star. This deviation, known as magnetic declination, frightened his crew, who thought dark forces were at play. But to Columbus, it was a clue, a hint that the Earth itself was not the static world men once imagined. That tiny trembling needle revealed that even our planet was alive and dynamic. By the time Magellan's fleet circumnavigated the globe in 1522, the compass had become the heart of every voyage. Maps were redrawn, continents discovered, oceans crossed. The world was no longer a mystery, but a frontier. Every sailor who touched the needle was, in essence, touching the pulse of the earth. As the centuries passed, the compass evolved, from a simple magnetized needle to a complex scientific instrument. In the 17th and 18th centuries, as the Age of Enlightenment dawned, scientists like William Gilbert in England began to study magnetism systematically. Gilbert's book De Magnete, 1600, declared that the Earth itself was a giant magnet, its magnetic poles influencing every compass needle on the planet. This revelation transformed navigation from an art into a science. Shipbuilders designed more stable gimbal-mounted compasses, which stayed level even as ships pitched and rolled. Explorers like Captain James Cook and Charles Darwin later relied on them to record their world-changing voyages. The compass became a symbol of civilization's march toward knowledge, from myth to measurement, from superstition to certainty. But perhaps the most profound beauty of the compass lies not in its mechanics, but in its symbolism. It embodies direction, purpose, and faith in the unseen. Every great explorer who set sail into the unknown carried with him an invisible belief that the needle would never lie, that the universe itself wanted to be discovered. In the modern era, the compass continued to guide adventurers across frozen poles, deserts, and mountains. Even as satellites and GPS emerged, the compass remained humanity's most trusted companion, a reminder that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, the first step of exploration is still trust. Today, when we look back, the story of the compass reads like a quiet epic. It was born from a rock that loved iron, nurtured by philosophers and monks, perfected by sailors and scientists, and carried in the pockets of dreamers who dared to find new worlds. The compass is more than a tool. It is the soul of exploration, the reason humanity stopped fearing the horizon. It taught us that the world doesn't end where our eyes can't see. It only begins there. From the Chinese lodestone spoons to European brass instruments, from the mystical to the mechanical, the compass united us all under one truth: that direction is not given by sight, but by belief. And so, the next time you hold a compass, or even glance at one on a digital map, remember that this tiny invention once guided humanity out of darkness. It whispered through storms and centuries. The world is waiting. Go find it.